Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with fem Kyuubi, Yang and Bambietta? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. July 1915, years after Kyuubi's attack on Hagakure. You want what? Naruto asked in shock as he gently held Lisbeth in his arms. Naruto-kun, I want to give you something you never had, a family. She said with finality in her voice. Naruto pulled back slightly and looked down at her with wide eyes. Liz, I can't do that. If people knew whose child it would be, they would hurt you now as a genin. I won't be present all the time to protect you. I can't put such a burden on you. When he said that, Lisbeth narrowed her eyes at him and pulled out from the hug. I don't need your protection all the time, Naruto, because I may. She stopped suddenly, her eyes not meeting his own. Naruto raised his eyebrow before something clicked in his mind. Liz, are you a Quincy? He asked suddenly. Lisbeth turned her eyes right at him. What? She asked in shock. Naruto stared at her for a few more seconds before he suddenly smiled brightly at her. I knew for a long time that my girlfriend was something special. You can't keep something like this away from me. He said and pulled her once more into a hug. How did you know? She asked weakly and snuggled closer to him. Naruto chuckled. Liz, I'm a Shinigami and Quincy and a hollow. At that, Lisbeth's eyes opened wide in shock. She looked up at him in shock and opened her mouth to speak, but Naruto silenced her with a kiss. The kiss lasted for few seconds before Naruto pulled back and sighed in content. I will tell you some other time, Liz, for now let's just sit and talk. At that, Lisbeth nodded slowly. With that, they sat down and began to drink their tea. So do you really want it, Liz? It will be very hard for you. Naruto said in a saddened tone. They finished the tea long ago and now lay down on her bed, snuggling close to each other. They still had their clothes on. Naruto-kun, those 3 years since I met you were enough to fall deeply in love with you. I really want to have your baby, because it's my dream to have a very big and happy family. Naruto chuckled at that and glided his hand through her hair. If you say so, but not anytime soon. I have too much on my head now. Lisbeth nodded lightly. I know, I just really want to get away from here, start a family with you and live happily. She said the last part with a bright smile on her face. She took hold of her glasses and placed them on the nightstand. Would you take a nap with me? Today must have been hard for you. When she said that, Naruto groaned and nodded lightly. Yeah, a nap is a good idea. He said and closed his eyes. Not even a minute later, a light snoring could be heard which caused Lisbeth to giggle lightly. She laid on top of his chest and sighed happily. Things will sort out, I just know it. Lisbeth thought and closed her eyes. Just like Naruto, she was quickly asleep. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Kurumi said to Kushina, who was standing in front of the door to Naruto's apartment, pounding furiously on the door. Kushina turned her head and glared at Kurumi. Shut up, you corrupted Naruto, I'm sure of it. She shouted and continued to knock furiously. Kurumi looked unfazed by her words and closed her eyes. When she found Naruto's energy, she grinned. You naughty boy, coming straight away to Liz-chan. Maybe I should join in on their fun. She mentally asked herself. She pondered this decision for few seconds before she sighed and looked at Kushina. But she really loved Naruto-kun. I should give her a chance to talk with him. She thought and released a heavy sigh. Kushina-chan, come with me. Kurumi said and began to walk toward the stairs. Kushina sent a death glare at her and turned toward the door. She raised her hand slightly and was about to knock once more before she sighed lightly. Damn it. Why should I listen to that slutty fox? She must be the one to corrupt Naruto. Kushina thought and looked at the retreating form of Kurumi, who looked at her and shook her head. You damn stubborn woman, you want to see Naruto or what? At that, Kushina sighed and nodded. Fine, let's go. Kurumi knocked at the door to Lisbeth's apartment. When nothing happened for several seconds, she sighed and knocked once more. This time, however, a female voice answered. Coming. The doors swung open after few seconds and Lisbeth looked at the 2 women in front of her in surprise. It quickly ended, however, when she saw Kushina. Her face turned into a scowl and she crossed her arms on her chest. Oh, it's you. Naruto don't want to see you. Lisbeth said and was about to close the door when Kurumi's hand stopped her. Lisbeth frowned at Kurumi's hand and growled slightly. Get that hand away before I cut it off. Lisbeth threatened, but Kurumi just smirked. Kushina stepped forward with a saddened expression. Please, I must see Naruto. I couldn't be for him back then, but I want to be his mother for real now. At that, Lisbeth scowled and balled her fists tightly. He don't need a mother, he has me. I will give him a family he never had. At that, Kushina opened her eyes wide in shock while Kurumi hissed at Lisbeth. Over my dead body, I must be the first to have his kits. At that, Lisbeth glared at Kurumi. Punk, no, only Kyuubi can be first and she's still sealed in him. It's only natural that his second mate should have this honor. Kushina only stared at the 2 of them in confusion. Kurumi grinned widely and shook her head in amusement. Liz-chan, I'm the Kyuubi. Kurumi said, and her proof came in form of 9 tails appearing behind her and 2 rabbit-like ears appeared on top of her head. Lisbeth took a step back in shock while Kushina flinched slightly, memories of the night 15 years ago still fresh in her mind. "Yo, you're the Kyuubi?" Lisbeth asked loudly and pointed at Kurumi, who grinned even wider. "Of course, Liz-chan, can we come inside now? It's not nice to talk about private matters in open." After few seconds of thinking, Lisbeth nodded slowly and stepped to the side, letting them in. "Turn left," she said, and after closing the door, she followed them into the kitchen where they all sat at the table. "So what is this about Naruto and you? Is he some harem master?" Kushina asked after several seconds of silence, her brow twitching slightly at the thought of her son sleeping with multiple women. "You can say that. Naruto-kun is probably the last male Uzumaki, so his goal is to restore Uzushio." At that, Kushina's eyes opened wide in shock. She was about to shout out about something, but Lisbeth shushed her. "Calm down, Naruto is sleeping," Lisbeth said. Kurumi raised her eyebrow and leaned close to Lisbeth, sniffing her. You're obviously aroused, but I don't smell Naruto-kun's semen on you." At that, Lisbeth blushed and crossed her arms protectively on her chest. "Of course you don't. Right now I would already had sex with Naruto, but he have too much on his head because of her." Lisbeth raised her voice and pointed at Kushina, who flinched, however she quickly noticed what Lisbeth said and a vein popped out on her forehead in annoyance. "Who the hell allowed you to do something like that with my son?" Kushina shouted in anger. Lisbeth stood up and slammed her hands on top of the table. "You have no right to control his life, he was doing just fine without you or that blonde bastard." At that, Kurumi looked at Lisbeth in shock. "Wow, Liz-chan, it's the first time you ever show some claws." At that comment, Lisbeth sent a glare at Kurumi. "Shut up, you slutty fox, I know you want the same as I did." Kurumi chuckled sheepishly and scratched the back of her head. Before she could say anything, however, the door to Lisbeth's bedroom opened and after few seconds Naruto walked inside the kitchen. "Liz, what the hell is?" His words stopped in his throat when he saw Kushina. He looked at Kurumi, who looked sheepish, and then turned toward Lisbeth, who only sighed. "Please hit Naruto-kun, there is much we have to talk about." July 2015, years after Kyuubi's attack on Hagakure. Naruto sighed as he waited for his team on the academy roof. His mother told him about meeting his team here, so he waited, but his teacher should be here a long time ago. "Where the funk is he? That Cyclops need a very good reason to be late." Naruto grumbled under his nose as he tapped his foot impatiently. "Don't be like that, Naruto-kun, you have much more important things to think about." Kurumi said happily. She's currently sitting on the floor with her back against a railing and in her hand a small plate with a piece of chocolate cake on it that Kurumi was munching on. Naruto sighed once more and looked at her. "You really love chocolate, don't you?" Naruto asked with a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Kurumi stopped eating and looked at Naruto cutely. "Can I get more later?" Kurumi asked excitedly. Naruto sighed slightly and nodded. "After we get this over with, just remember that our funds are limited." At that, Kurumi nodded with a wide smile and returned to devouring the cake. Several seconds passed when a cloud of smoke caught their attention. The cloud quickly dispersed, revealing Kakashi Hatake, who stand before them with an orange book in hand. He glanced up from his book and blinked upon seeing Naruto and Kurumi. What is she doing here?" Kakashi asked, pointing one finger at Kurumi, who showed him a middle finger. Naruto sighed and ruffled his hair a little. "She's my mate and partner, just treat her as an unofficial member of team." "Wait, what team is it?" At that, Kakashi's sweat dropped. "Team 7, Naruto. The other members are Sasuke, Uchiha and Sakura Haruno." At that, Naruto paled and palmed his face, a growl rolled out from his throat. "Great emo duckus princess and pink banshee, just what I needed," Naruto muttered. Kurumi nodded with a scowl on her face, while Kakashi sighed tiredly. "It's just not my day, is it?" Kakashi thought and looked back at his book. Even 1 minute didn't pass as the rooftop doors opened and the rest of Team 7 appeared. "Great, you too." Naruto sighed in annoyance, his arms crossed over his chest. Sasuke's permanent scowl deepened, while Sakura fumed in anger upon seeing Naruto. Then their eyes turned to Kurumi, who decided to stand on Naruto's right. "My first opinion of you is boring." At that, Sasuke and Sakura tried to protest, but one look from Kurumi stopped them. Kakashi nodded his thanks to her and cleared his throat. "Alright, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Kakashi Hatake. I have many likes, not many dislikes. My hobby you don't need to know, and my dream, well, it's not your business." At that, both Kurumi and Naruto sighed while Sakura tried her hardest not to kill Kakashi. Sasuke just groaned slightly. "Alright, you next, fox." At that, Kurumi scowled and muttered ungrateful peasant under her breath. "My name is Kyuubi Kurumi, hopefully Uzumaki in near future." Upon hearing that, Kakashi nearly choked on his spit, while Sakura stared at Kurumi in disbelief. Kurumi, however, didn't care. "I like Naruto, chocolate and having glorious sex." Kurumi proclaimed loudly. Kakashi nearly had a nosebleed, while Sakura blushed heavily. Sasuke like always remained stoic. Naruto however grinned brightly at the praise. I don't like rapists and people who think they are better than anyone. My hobby are reading, eating and spending time with Naruto. My dream is to have a very big family with Naruto. Naruto smiled at that and wrapped his arm around her waist, bringing her closer. Alright, well, that was interesting. Naruto, you're next. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like my mates, my friends, reading, cooking, training and ramen. I don't like perverts, rapists, people who judge others without knowing them and people who hurt others for profits. My hobby is reading, training and spending time with my mates and friends. My dream is to restore Uchiha to its former glory and get revenge on people responsible for its destruction. At the last part, Sasuke and Sakura looked at Naruto in confusion. Uchiha? I never heard about it. Sakura said, to which Naruto sighed. It was destroyed years ago. My mother was raised there before she arrived to Konoha. Sakura nodded hesitantly. It was obvious she had some more questions. Kakashi nodded at Naruto and turned toward Sakura. You next, Pinky. At that, Sakura turned red in the face from anger, causing everyone except Sasuke to sigh. My name is Sakura Haruno. My likes are. She glanced at Sasuke and blushed. I dislike Naruto Baka. At that, Kurumi nearly jumped at Sakura to rip out her throat, but Naruto stopped her. My hobby is taking care of my flowers. My dream is. She once again glanced at Sasuke, to which Kakashi sighed. Great, another fangirl. Kakashi thought in defeat. He turned toward his last student. Sasuke. He said simply and Sasuke nodded. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like training. I have many dislikes. My hobby is training and learning new jutsu. My dream is to restore the glory of my clan and kill a certain someone. The last part gained Naruto's attention. He knew who caused the Uchiha massacre and smirked. Uchiha Usagi, Sasuke's older sister from the picture in her folder. I remember she was quite hot. Maybe I should find her. Naruto must to himself with a smirk. Alright, it's only 10 AM, so we have time for a true genin test. When he said that, Sakura looked at him in confusion. I thought we're already genin. Naruto sighed loudly, gaining her attention. But you really thought that a simple writing test is enough to be a ninja? Sakura opened her mouth to speak, but closed it after few seconds. She looked down in embarrassment. Knew it. Naruto said. Kakashi sighed once more and scratched the back of his head. Alright, enough of it. Meet me at the training ground 7 in 20 minutes. With that, City disappeared in SHUNSHIN body flicker. Without another word, Kurumi grabbed Naruto's shoulder and both of them disappeared in a small cloud of black smoke. Naruto, Kurumi and Kakashi stand at the training ground 7 in complete silence. Sasuke and Sakura are yet to arrive, but Naruto could feel them coming closer. So, Naruto, how are you feeling today? Kakashi asked with a eye smile. Naruto looked at him without a care. Rather good, Kurumi took care of that. Kurumi blushed. Kakashi already knew what he meant. Just then Sasuke arrived, quickly followed by Sakura, who looked slightly paler than before. Great, you're all here. Kakashi said and reached behind his back. He pulled out 2 small bells to show them and tied it to his weapon pouch. Your objective is to get this bell. Each of you have to get one to pass. At this, Sakura raised her hand. Kakashi-sensei, there are only 2 bells. Kakashi I smiled. You are right, Miss Haruno. This means that one of you will go back to academy. Naruto facepalmed and shoot Kakashi a knowing look. Alright, let's begin. Kakashi said and pulled out a timer which he placed on top of a wooden pillar that stood there. There were also 2 more pillars on each side of the one Kakashi placed a timer on. You have 5 hours to take the bells. Time start. As he said that, the timer activated. Sakura and Sasuke immediately jumped into the nearby trees to hide, while Naruto and Kurumi just stood there. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at that. You're not going to hide? He asked. 2 clouds of smoke appeared behind Naruto, who looked blankly at Kakashi. The smoke cleared, revealing 2 copies of Naruto that quickly jumped after his teammates. I didn't have a good fight in a long time. I think you will provide some challenge. As he said that, electricity began to slowly dance around Naruto. Kurumi smirked and moved away from him, sitting under a nearby tree. Just try not to kill him, Naruto. It will be a pain in the ass to explain it to Hokage. Naruto only grinned at her as the electricity began to cover most of his body. Oh please, I know you want to see some blood. By now the electricity covered all of Naruto's body. Kakashi's eyes went wide open from shock. Right, no YOROI lightning release armor. He thought in shock. After few seconds the lightnings around Naruto began to speed up and turn orange. From the sleeve of his Haori a silver handle without blades slid out. Naruto caught the handle and pointed it at Kakashi, who started to sweat slightly. Let's fight. Naruto said coldly. A bright blue energy shot out from the handle, creating a blade. The orange lightning around his body began to also cover the blade. The blade of energy slowly started to turn orange, just like the lightning around Naruto. July 2015 years after Kyuubi's attack on Hagakure. Kakashi stared in shock as orange lightnings danced on Naruto's body. Without any hesitation he pulled up his headband, revealing his scarred left eye that opened showing a Sharingan. Kakashi pulled out a kunai with both of his hands and took a stance which caused Naruto to smirk. Kakashi felt movement in the trees around them and became worried about his safety for a second before he shook his head. He's just a fresh genin, I shouldn't be too worried, just using Futon techniques should be enough. Kakashi thought and nodded to himself. When he looked up at Naruto he with fear noticed that the blonde wasn't there. What? I just blinked and he's not there, just who taught him? Kakashi began to frantically look around and his grip on the kunai tightened. He felt a movement behind him and quickly rolled to the right just as Naruto crashed into the ground where he once stood. Not wasting any time Kakashi threw the kunai at Naruto and went through a series of hand seals. Ton. Tatapa. Wind release. Great breakthrough, Kakashi shouted. He took a deep breath and released a powerful stream of wind at Naruto, who quickly faced him and performed a tiger hand seal. Pain. Correctin. Fire release. Fire dragon bullet. Naruto within a second spewed out a stream of fire that, even with the strong wind blowing in the opposite direction, enlarged due to nature advantage, and flew at slightly stunned Kakashi, who was already in the middle of performing another technique. The flames were hot enough to completely melt the kunai. Suiton. Sujin Heki. Water release. Water formation wall. Kakashi spewed out a stream of water in front of himself that quickly formed a wall of water that stopped the flames from reaching him, much to his horror. However, the flames keep coming, forcing him to constantly resupplying the water. After few seconds the flames stopped coming and Kakashi was about to release the technique when something crashed into the wall and burst out of it. It was nothing else than Naruto with his lightning armor, a smirk on his face as his hand reached to Kakashi's face. "Got you?" Naruto shouted and caught Kakashi's face. Naruto raised him slightly before slamming him into the ground which created a rather deep crater, a testament to Naruto's strength. Naruto smirked for a second, but when Kakashi exploded into a cloud of smoke Naruto frowned. The only thing laying in the crater was a wooden log. Right, Kawarimi cheap trick but very useful. Naruto thought and looked around, then his senses kicked in when he felt a natural electricity of a human body directly beneath him. He quickly jumped, but Kakashi's hand shot out from the ground and tightly grabbed his ankles, despite the armor of lightning shocking him. Before Naruto could do anything Kakashi dragged him beneath the ground so only his head was visible. Naruto immediately burst out with a poof of smoke, showing that he was a clone. The real Naruto jumped into the air from the trees and prepared to deliver an axe kick on the ground. Kakashi's Kage Bunshin, that was observing it in hiding dispelled, transferring the memory to the original. "Take that." Naruto shouted and axe kicked the ground, creating a small tremor and shattering a good part of the field they are fighting. Kakashi quickly jumped out from beneath the ground and jumped back as Naruto was already at him with his energy blade. If Kakashi was slower, that slash could easily take off his head. Kakashi took out a kunai and coated it with wind nature chakra. He blocked a slash from Naruto, but the blade of energy slowly began to cut through the kunai. Much to Kakashi's bewilderment, Kakashi quickly created some distance between Naruto and himself before he threw the kunai at Naruto and started a series of hand seals. "Like I'd let you?" Naruto shouted and appeared in front of Kakashi. Seeing Naruto's hands only inches from his face was slightly disturbing for Kakashi, but something else caught his attention. Looking to his right, Kakashi saw something that froze him in place. Calmly sunbathing at the edge of the forest clearing was Kurumi. However, what caught Kakashi's complete attention was the face that she was sunbathing naked, and the only piece of clothing she wore is a black thong that barely covers her womanhood. His Sharingan burned the image of her chest into his mind, even as Naruto finally grabbed his head and slammed him into the ground like before. This time however Kakashi didn't have time for Kawarimi. Kakashi glanced at Naruto who raised his left palm and slammed it down at his chest. "Aim ga fute." Raining hand, Naruto shouted as he slammed his palm at Kakashi's chest. For a second nothing happened, but then a perfectly circular crater appeared under Kakashi that had at least 3 meters in radius and a dust shot out into the air. Kurumi's ears perked up at this as she raised slightly and looked at the cloud of dust. "Oh my, this fight is over it seems," she said lazily and laid back down. The cloud of dust cleared after few seconds and revealed Naruto standing over a downed Kakashi. Naruto bent down and took the bells from Kakashi who groaned loudly. "Naruto, I can't move," he said weakly. Naruto sighed and picked Kakashi up before setting him on his right shoulder. "Of course you can't, that last move was meant for immobilizing strong targets, you should be up and running after a good rest." At that Kakashi groaned once more. Naruto turned toward Kurumi and smirked upon the sight of her naked body. "Oh, so that's why you lost, pervert." At that comment Kakashi only growled in irritation. "Kurumi, let's go," Naruto said loudly, catching her attention. She quickly stood up and dressed before walking up to Naruto. Just then the other two members of his team arrived and gasped at the sight. The training ground was more or less destroyed and Kakashi, their teacher, was defeated. Banshee, Duckus, let's go, the test is over. Naruto said and showed them the bells. Sakura was staring at everything in shock while Sasuke glared at Naruto. Wait. Sakura screeched, gaining everyone's attention. What about the test? One of yous without the bell was going to be sent back to academy. Naruto sighed and shook his head. Each new team have 3 genin added, this test purpose was teamwork, but I got slightly carried away in my fight anyway, let's meet here tomorrow at 7 AM, right, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto said casually and Kakashi grunted slightly. Naruto began to walk away with Kurumi right beside him. Sasuke only gritted his teeth in anger before he walked home with Sakura following him and asking him on a date. Naruto and Kurumi quickly drop off Kakashi at the hospital and left, but even then they met with Retsu who started working there. After a small chat they went separate ways, Naruto and Kurumi toward their apartment and Retsu back to work. So what do you think about her? Kurumi asked after few moments of silence, to which Naruto just sighed. I hate to admit it, but she could wipe the floor with me without any problems. You also can feel her power, can't you? Kurumi nodded with a short growl. Yeah, that woman is terrifying, she's just like that bitch Mito. Kurumi spat the name with so much venom that Naruto flinched slightly. You never told me what happened, why you hate her so much. At Naruto's question Kurumi sent him a blank look. She sealed me, if it was in a fair fight, then I wouldn't resent her that much, but she sealed me up when I was weakened, good thing she's dead. Kurumi said with a huff. She looked at Naruto and smirked after few seconds. You know how about a threesome, Kurumi whispered, which immediately caused Naruto to freeze in place, his eyes going wide in disbelief. You mean you and Liz or Anko? He asked carefully. Kurumi closed her eyes and hummed in thought for few seconds before opening her eyes and grinning from ear to ear. Liz-chan, is that alright with you? Naruto immediately nodded at the question, to which Kurumi nodded in satisfaction. Then let's go get Liz-chan, she should take a break from time to time. After she said that, Kurumi grabbed Naruto by his arm and started to drag him toward the Konoha's library. July 21, 15 years after Kikibi's attack on Hagakure. The sound of someone knocking at his door roused Naruto from his sleep. He groaned and slowly opened his eyes and looking around. His room looked like a total mess, clothes laid sprawled on the floor everywhere he could see. Slowly, Naruto tried to sit up, but a weight on his chest held him down. He slowly looked down, and immediately the memories of last night returned to him. Lying on his chest was Kurumi and Lisbeth, both naked under the sheets just like he is. Damn, that was one hell of a night, we really need to repeat that. Naruto thought and carefully untangled himself from the grip his mates had on him. The girls quickly snuggled into the place he once occupied. After getting up he quickly dressed and went to his door to answer. Opening them he was surprised to see an purple-haired Anbu with a cat-like mask. Uzumaki-san, Hokage-sama have an announcement to make for the whole village, your presence is most important. At that Naruto blinked once, then twice. Finally he asked the best thing he could. What? That not very intelligent question caused the Anbu to sigh. Hokage-sama wanted to make an announcement to the whole village at 10 AM, he want you present there. Naruto slowly nodded and the Anbu disappeared in a shunshin. Naruto sighed and closed the door before returning to the bedroom. He immediately smiled when he saw his mate sleeping peacefully in bed. I want everything to stay like this forever. Naruto thought with a smile on his face and looked at the clock hanging on the wall. He sighed and shook his head slightly. I should better go now. Naruto walked out from the bedroom and out of his apartment. He locked the door and began to walk toward the training ground 7. Much to everyone's shock, Kakashi arrived on time, which greatly disturbed both Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto, however, stood there with a triumphant smirk on his face. Kakashi blinked few times upon seeing Sakura and Sasuke crouching against a nearby tree and shaking in fear. He looked at Naruto and pointed at his other two students. What happened to them? Kakashi asked in confusion before the smirk on Naruto's face went wider. Maybe they're terrified that someone arrived on time. At that Kakashi raised his eyebrow. What do you mean, it's around 10 in the morning. Just as Kakashi finished, Naruto began to laugh madly. Sakura and Sasuke perked up at that and looked at Naruto like he was crazy. After few minutes of laughing, Naruto calmed down and shook his head. Kakashi, you didn't realize that I tinkered with your alarm clock. The rest of Team 7 and Kakashi stared at Naruto blankly for several seconds before Kakashi sighed and shook his head. Well, anyway, today we don't have time to do much as Hokage-sama have an announcement to make for the whole village. Gather on the main square at 10 AM, except you Naruto, you are needed at the top of Hokage Tower. At the last part Sasuke shot a glare at Naruto. What? That dope is needed while I'm not. Like hell. Sasuke thought and stood up to protest, however everyone quickly turned toward the path Kakashi came from when they heard someone walking toward them. Sakura paled, and Sasuke smirked when they saw Kurumi walk toward them with a light limp. Kakashi immediately knew what happened and gave Naruto an eye smile, followed by a thumb up which Naruto quickly returned. Naruto's other teammates were confused as to what happened just now. Moo. Naruto-kun, it's not nice to leave a woman alone in bed, you know. Kurumi shouted from the distance. Naruto chuckled and shook his head slightly. I just couldn't wake you up, Kuhaim, besides, you aren't very friendly after waking up. Kurumi pouted slightly as she walked up to Naruto. It's not my fault, you always get up early, and I need my beauty sleep. Naruto smiled and wrapped his arms around her waist, bringing her closer. You know I can't help it, besides, you always find a way to keep me in bed. Naruto smirked along with Kurumi. They were about to continue when Kakashi cleared his throat. You two can do that after we finish here. Kakashi said, at which Kurumi pouted. Killjoy. She muttered and snuggled closer to Naruto. Kakashi just sighed and shook his head lightly. Anyway, as I was saying before, Hokage-sama have a very important announcement to make, that's why be at the main square before 10 am, that's all, you two can continue. With that said, Kakashi turned around and began to walk away. Naruto smirked and tightened his grip on Kurumi. The two of them was suddenly enveloped in a cloud of black miasma-like smoke. The smoke stayed for few seconds before dispersing, showing that both Naruto and Kurumi were gone. Sasuke growled at the place Naruto stood before he just walked away, with Sakura following right behind him like a loyal pet. Jin watched the crowd from the top of Hokage Tower, his eyes and face devoid of any emotions. I can't believe Minato wants to reveal Naruto's heritage in front of the whole village. Naruto didn't want that, and that old fossil Shimura is still alive. Well, he was always paranoid, no wonder he left a decoy inside his base. Jin thought and turned, looking at all the gathered. Standing behind him was Minato, Kushina, Danzm, Homura, Kaharu and the Jinin. He frowned slightly when Naruto didn't show up. Strange, he should be here by now. Just as Jin finished his thought, a black cloud appeared at the roof from which Naruto walked out, followed by Kurumi. Naruto was slightly exhausted and Kurumi was practically glowing. Jin smirked upon seeing this. Oh my, you two were rather busy, I presume. That comment earned him a glare from Naruto and a chuckle from Kurumi. Trust me, we were nowhere near the end. Kushina sighed and shook her head, while Minato frowned slightly. I can guess, anyway, it's about time. Jin said and turned back to the crowd. People of Konoha. Jin said with his chakra-enhanced voice. There is something all of you know about a certain day 15 years ago, the day when Kyuubi attacked our village. At that, many people began whispering around. That day, our beloved Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, sacrificed his life to seal Kyuubi inside his own son. That son is Naruto Uzumaki. Some people said a few spiteful comments about the demon, but they were quickly dealt with by the Anbu. However, few days ago I learned about something important. Our Yondaime is alive, and what was his death was actually a coma. Many people began looking around, which Jin easily noticed. In fact, he is right here. Minato, come closer. Minato stepped beside Jin, his Haori gone. People immediately began cheering for their hero, but Minato stopped them by raising his hand. As you can all see, I'm back, however not as a Hokage, but as a normal Jonin of Konoha. What Hokage-sama wanted to tell was not only about my return, but also about my son being officially chosen as a clan head of the Uzumaki clan. When Minato said that, everything became quiet. People stared at him in shock for several seconds before someone brave, or stupid, shouted. Are you kidding? You let that monster be a clan head? Obviously, the one who said that was dealt with quickly and mercilessly, which shocked everyone around. Minato frowned at them. My son is not a monster. Kyuubi was under a genjutsu that only a Sharingan is capable of. That caused everyone to stop and look at their previous Hokage. Actually, Kyuubi is right here with us. When Minato said that, Jin face-palmed and groaned. Minato turned toward Kurumi, but only met a fist to his face, courtesy of an enraged Naruto whose eyes turned red. The punch was actually strong enough to send Minato flying off the roof. What do you think you are doing, you bastard? Leave Kurumi out of this. Naruto yelled after Minato, who regained some composure and used Hiraiishin Flying Thunder God to appear back at the roof holding his nose. Why did you do that? I only want to help you. Minato shouted at Naruto, who glared at him. Is this another one of your oh so great ideas, like thinking that this maggots down there would treat me like a funking hero for having Kurumi sealed inside me? That comment stopped Minato from saying anything more. He just looked down at his feet and stayed silent. Naruto huffed and gently took Kurumi's hand before glaring at Minato one last time. Remember one thing, if you ever hurt Kurumi or any of my mates, you will die. With that said, Naruto and Kurumi were enveloped by the black cloud, the sign of his Anshiya being used. Kushina placed a hand on her mouth in shock. She couldn't imagine how Naruto hated Minato to outright threaten him in front of the village. Many people saw the Kurumi and immediately know who she was. Naruto closed the door to his apartment with a sigh. The bad feeling he was getting this morning turned out to be true, and now it's too late to change anything. Naru-kun, don't worry about it, everything will be fine. Kurumi said calmly and hugged Naruto, who sighed once more. I know Kuhaim, it's just hard for me to not kill that man, besides, with him around we need to alter our plan slightly. Naruto said seriously. Kurumi just smiled and gave him a light peck on his lips. It's not that bad, you know, after all nothing will stand in your way. At that Naruto smiled. You know, you're right. Naruto stopped suddenly and looked in the direction of his bedroom. You know how about he didn't get to finish as Kurumi was already leaning against the doorway completely naked. Are you coming or what? I still don't have enough after last night. Naruto cringed slightly at her words. He already knew that his hips will be hurting like hell next day. July 29, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack on Hagakure. It was a calm afternoon in Konoha. People were walking around doing what they wanted, birds were singing, and in a forest surrounding Konoha an explosion alarmed most civilians. However, all shinobi in Kunoichi were calm because they knew what was happening. Tora the cat escaped again. Come back here, you stupid cat. Sasuke shouted as he chased after the cat. His clothes were singed in several places and his face was covered in soot. The reason why he looked like that was simple yet very unbelievable. Tora took out an explosive tag from his pouch and somehow ignited it. It was by sheer luck that his body was completely intact. Sasuke, report. Kakashi's voice sounded through the radio. Sasuke sighed and pressed a button on his wireless radio. I lost the sight of the target. Sasuke said. The link stayed silent for several seconds before Kakashi responded. Continue searching, we must find her before whatever Kakashi wanted to tell was lost as a woman's scream sounded through the forest. Who is that? Sasuke thought. He looked in the direction of the sound but stopped as a heavy presence invaded the air and it became harder to breathe. Well, what's going on? Sasuke thought in fright. The presence was so heavy that Sasuke went on his knees. It felt like hours, but after several seconds Kakashi landed beside Sasuke, hit his face with open hand. Focus, Sasuke. Kakashi said sternly, his lone eye narrowed. The hit snapped Sasuke out from his daze. He quickly stood up and nodded. Duoria. A shout of rage filled the forest air. It sounded very similar to Naruto's voice, but it was distorted, almost like speaking through water. Kakashi's eyes widened and looked at Sasuke. Go find Sakura, whatever happened, it seems like Naruto is pissed. Kakashi quickly said and jumped in the direction of the shout. Sasuke wanted to argue, but the shout scared him slightly. Punk that, it's Dope's problem, not mine. He thought and went searching for Sakura. What the hell was that? Naruto thought with raised eyebrow. He turned toward Lisbeth. Maybe we should go, whatever is happening it's not our problem. So whatever he wanted to say was stopped as memories of the shadow clone he sent with his team returned. The last thing he saw was a brown blur that hit his face. What the funk? Naruto shouted, but he couldn't do anything more as the same brown blur slammed into his chest and sent him flying toward the lake. He hit the water and quickly disappeared under the surface, at which Lisbeth screamed in fright. Tora herself however just huffed angrily and turned to leave, but a heavy presence mixed with godly amount of killer intents filled the air. In that moment Tora knew she funked up. Duoria. Naruto screamed in fury as he appeared on the surface after few seconds, his voice distorted and chilling to the bone. He focused his chakra in his feet and stood on the water surface, his orange Ryatsu manifesting around him like a cloak of flames and becoming larger with each second. Lisbeth also felt the killing intense, but not in a level Tora did as she was the main target of Naruto's rage. He pulled out his Zanpakutm soul cutter sword and pointed it at Tora, who was rotted to the ground in fear. Naruto's sclera turned black in color and his iris changed color to a glowing neon blue. He placed his left hand on top of his face and made a gripping motion, a black flame-like aura with bright blue specks in it. His Ryatsu slowly turned the same color. You will regret this. Naruto muttered coldly. He brought his left hand down and the same flame-like aura covered his face. The aura dispersed after few seconds and a white goat-like mask appeared on his face. The mask is rather simple in design, with large straight horn pointing upward and a black upside-down hook-like mark where his forehead is. The horns also have 3 black stripes circling horizontally near the base, in the middle and near the top of the horns. His piercing eyes stared at Tora from the narrow eye holes in the mask. Tora immediately started to run just as a trench appeared where she once stood. Naruto turned toward Liz, who stared at him in awe. You can go, Liz-chan, I have something to do. Naruto said and disappeared with a sound of statics. Lisbeth just stared at the place he once was in and blinked. He seriously has hollow powers. Lisbeth thought and slowly made her way toward the village, a horde of thoughts going through her head. Oh Tora, where are you? Naruto said loudly in a sing-song voice as he brought down another tree with his sword. It was few minutes since the situation by the lake and he still searched for Tora. He looked around with cold eyes before he sighed and prepared to search somewhere else when a slight, almost non-existent rustling caught his attention. He looked at the tree behind him and caught a glimpse of red ribbon. Under the mask he flashed a feral smirk. Tora was hiding on the high branch of the tree. She trembled in fear as she recalled several near-death situations she had in the past several minutes. No good, Naya. That guy is crazy, Naya. Tora thought as she heard footsteps nearing her and tensed. However, few seconds later the footsteps stopped and she breathed a sigh of relief. "Little bastard, I thought I was going to die, Naya. Funk that, Naya, I will go back to that bitch, Naya." Tora was about to jump down when she saw her reflection in the blade that embedded itself right in front of her face. Her eyes went wide open when she saw the goat-like mask in the reflection. "There you are, you gave me some trouble, you know," Naruto said in a sing-song voice. It was clear that he was pissed off. Tora was about to escape when a hand grasped her head. Now, there's no need to run, I just wanted to talk." Naruto's sickly sweet told Tora a completely different story. He lifted Tora and turned her to face him. Feeling a moment of desperation, she slashed her claws at his face, but the mask protected it. Naruto's eyes narrowed at her as he shook his head slightly. "Now listen here, I wanted to make one thing clear. Now I will take you back to your owner, and you better don't think about escaping again, or else," Naruto threatened, at which Tora gulped. "I will find you and make you regret ever being born, understood?" Tora immediately began nodding furiously. Naruto's mask disappeared as he stood up and sheathed his sword. "See, it wasn't so hard now, was it?" Naruto said cheerfully just as Kakashi landed next to him. "I see you got her, now we can go back, good work," Kakashi said with pride in his lone eye. Naruto nodded and the two of them, along with Tora, who was still held by Naruto, went to search for the rest of the team. August 3, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack Konohagakure. Inochimaru, Roku Daime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sado, one of the most powerful people in the village, blinked in shock. The cause of his shock was simple, the request made by Uchiha Sasuke, a member of Team 7. "Say what now?" Jin asked for confirmation of what he just heard. "You heard me, I have enough of this D-ranked shit. I want a challenge worthy of an Uchiha like me," Sasuke said in a raised voice. Naruto, who stood beside the Uchiha, sighed. "Here we go again." Naruto muttered under his nose, to which Kurumi, also present with them, sighed and shook his head, with Kakashi doing the same. The only member of Team 7 not annoyed by this is Sakura, who have stars in her eyes as she watched her Sasuke-kun in awe. "It was a long time since I heard something stupid like that," Jin simply said and returned to his paperwork, that is, until a hand slammed on top of his desk with enough force to scatter the papers everywhere. "I won't do any more D-ranks, you hear me? I must get stronger, as an elite it's my duty." At that, every member of Team 7 sighed once more. However, Sakura sighed longingly with a dreamy look in her eyes. Jin looked at Kakashi, who waved his hand lazily, giving him a go-ahead. Jin nodded slowly and reached into the drawer on his desk, from which he pulled out a scroll. "Alright, if you really want it so much, then I'm not stopping you. Here is a simple C-rank mission. I hope it will be satisfying to you," Jin said lazily and placed the scroll in front of himself. Sasuke smirked and took the scroll. "It's a simple escort mission to Nami no Kooni Wave Country. The worst you will have to worry about are some bandits, not much, but it will do for the first serious mission." Just as he finished speaking, the door to his office opened and an elderly, bespectacled man of around 179 centimeters in height, with gray hair, large beard and dark eyes. He wears a sleeveless V-neck shirt with an obi, pants and a pair of sandals. He also carried a towel around his neck and wore a pointed hat on his head. He also have a bottle in his hand. He looked at everyone inside the room and scoffed slightly. "I wanted ninja, not brats, it isn't what I paid for." At that comment, Sasuke glared at the man and rushed at him. However, Naruto tripped him, causing Sasuke to smash headfirst with the floor. "Ups, my bad," Naruto said lazily, which caused Kurumi to giggle and Sakura to glare at him. Jin smirked while Kakashi had a smile that was barely visible thanks to his mask. The elder man scratched the back of his head and mumbled something under his breath. "Well, the blonde kid isn't so bad, I think. By the way, my name is Tazuna, just hurry up and get ready, I want to go back as soon as possible." With that said, Tazuna walked out from the office just as Sasuke stood up and glared at Naruto. "What do you think you're doing, dope?" Sasuke shouted, at which Naruto only looked around for several seconds before finally setting his eyes on Sasuke. "Oh, I forgot you were there, I'm not sorry at all." With that said, Naruto looked left at Kurumi, who was clinging tightly to his arm. "So, are you coming too?" Naruto asked, which caused Kurumi to grin. "With you every damn time." The implication was clear to everyone. Outside of the Hokage office, inside the forests of the Aburami compound, Shino looked toward the Hokage office and gave a thumb up. His father, Shibi, raised an eyebrow at that. "What are you doing?" he asked. Shino looked at his father and simply shrugged. An hour later the Team 7 along with Tazuna waited for the last member of the team, Naruto. Where is that baka? We should get going already. Sakura shouted, causing everyone nearby to cringe as their eardrums nearly exploded. Damn, that boy sure is loud. Tazuna commented bluntly. Sakura heard that and turned toward him. I'm a girl. She shouted right in his face, which caused Kakashi to sigh and facepalm. Why did I ever agree to this? Kakashi thought in despair. Just then from the corner of his eyes he saw Naruto along with Kurumi, who was limping again. The hell, does they ever take a break? Kakashi asked himself but quickly decided to just leave it. Sorry for the late, I had something important to finish. Naruto said with a grin on his face. Kurumi giggled at that. And that was one hell of a finish. Kakashi sighed as he saw the other genin of his team blush. I'm too old for that. He thought and shook his head. It's good you're here, let's just go. And with that said the team along with their client went through the gate of Konoha toward their destination, Nami no Kuni. Few hours later they were still walking. Sakura was asking Tazuna about the wave, Sasuke and Kakashi looked around and Naruto just flirted with Kurumi. The sun was glaring down at them but they didn't react in any way. However, after another several minutes something interesting happened which Naruto instantly noticed. Really? A puddle when it hasn't rained in few weeks, are they retarded or what? Naruto thought and looked as Kakashi slowed down and began to walk beside Naruto, who gave him a nod. Kakashi slowed even more, so he walked the last, and just as he passed the puddle two figures jumped out of it. Both of them has shoulder-length wild dark brown hair and dark eyes. They wears a rebreathers that covers the lower half of their faces and a large clawed poisonous gauntlets on their arms, which are connected to each other by a shuriken chain. They both wear a camouflaged suits with bandages around their waist. They rushed to Kakashi and entangled him in their chain before one of them shouted. Now, Maizu. With that both of them pulled on the chain and shredded Kakashi into pieces, much to everyone's shock. The two killers turned toward the rest of the group and rushed at them. At the bridge builder, Gozk. The one now identified as Maizu shouted, however they didn't saw Naruto, who suddenly appeared behind them and pulled out a sword before plunging it down onto the chain. Now, it's not nice to attack like that. A voice from behind them gained the attention of the two assassins. Their eyes went wide open when they saw the blonde kid with his sword pinning their chain to the ground. They realized that too late, however, so their sprint ended with them being suddenly pulled off the ground and falling to the ground on their backs. When that happened, Sasuke snapped out of his stupor and rushed at the two ninja just as they tried to stand up, punching them both and knocking them out. Wow, that was quick. Naruto with the group said and disappeared in the cloud of smoke, earning a surprised looks from Tazuna and Sakura. The real Naruto pulled his sword out of the ground and sheathed it, promising to clean it later. You can come out now, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said as he turned to the right. Few seconds later a clapping could be heard as Kakashi walked out from the forest. Impressive, I knew you could do this, Naruto, he trailed off as he looked at Tazuna with a cold gaze. Now as for you, Tazuna-san, I hope you have some explanation to do. Kakashi said, at which Tazuna gulped in fear. He quickly began to explain how it was the amount Nami no Kuni could afford, about Gatman and the poverty he brought to the country. He also told them about the bridge, which is their only hope. After the explanation was done, Kakashi sighed and turned toward his genin. As much as I want to go back, I must ask you, do you want to continue? The question caused mixed reactions. Sakura fidgeted in place while taking a glance at Sasuke. Kakashi sighed at this. Sasuke snorted and crossed his arms on his chest. I don't mind, it can be some challenge at least. Sasuke said arrogantly with a smirk on his face. Kakashi shook his head mentally and looked at Naruto, who looked like he wanted to kill someone. We should go, I want to behead that Gaten guy. At that answer, Kakashi sweat dropped. He glanced at Kurumi, who had a psychotic smile on her face. Alright, if you all want so, Kakashi started and looked at Tazuna with an famous eye smile of his. We will help you, just let me tie up this too and send a message to Hokage, maybe he can send some backup as this mission became much more difficult. With that said, Naruto walked up to the two unconscious ninja and picked them up before he brought them under the tree where he tied them up. The demon brothers, if they are here then I have a feeling there are going to be trouble. Kakashi thought and wrote a quick message describing their situation. I hope they will send someone. He said quietly and was about to summon one of his dogs when Naruto's hand landed on his shoulder. Let me do it, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said and performed a chain of hand seals before biting on his thumb as to draw blood and slamming his right palm on the ground. Uchiha no Jutsu summoning technique, Naruto shouted, and a sealing matrix appeared under his hand before exploding in a large cloud of smoke. It dispersed after few seconds, showing something that made Kakashi and the other blink. Standing before Naruto was a small white fox reaching to just below his knees. It has silver eyes with slitted pupils and several golden-colored sticking out strands of fur shaped like a lightning bolts all across its body. It also have bigger lightning-shaped strands of fur on its head, along with golden-colored tips of ears and its two tails. It also have a forehead protector tied around its neck. It has golden cloth with silver plate on which a spiral symbol was engraved. The fox looked up into Naruto's eyes with excitement. "Daddy, you didn't visit me for a long time." The fox said loudly in a feminine tone, clearly showing her gender. Everyone except Kurumi blinked in confusion as the fox jumped into Naruto's arms and made herself comfortable. Naruto smiled gently at her. "Look at you, Konatsu-chan, to think that only few months ago you were just a one-tailed kid. I'm sorry for not visiting, but I was busy." Naruto said and began to gently scratch her head, earning a purr from the small kitsune. Naruto, did she just call you daddy?" Kakashi asked uncomfortably, at which the small fox lifted her head in Kakashi's direction and smiled brightly, or at least it looked like a smile. "Of course, daddy is my daddy, so I call him daddy." At that answer, Kakashi and everyone else couldn't help but blink again. Kakashi looked at Naruto first and stared for few seconds before looking at the smiling Kurumi, then his gaze went back to Naruto. He blinked few more times before a thought entered his mind. "Naruto, did you and Kurumi-san?" he began as took one more look at Kurumi, who stared at him in confusion. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him before he finally understood what he meant. "Oh, no, not yet at least. Konatsu-chan is my daughter in all but blood. She was one of the orphan kids after Uchiha was destroyed. Not many people know that, but foxes inhabited that island and were contracted with my clan. Thanks to Kurumi I was able to sign the contract with them." At the last part, Konatsu perked up and looked in the direction of the redhead. She narrowed her eyes at her before Kurumi smiled and released her tails from the hiding. Konatsu almost immediately jumped out from Naruto's arms and bowed before Kurumi. "Ikki-sama, it's an honor to meet you in person." Konatsu said calmly, at which Kurumi chuckled and lifted her up. "Konatsu-chan, you don't need to be so formal with me. If Naruto-kun is your father, then it makes me your mother." Kurumi said lovingly and lightly hugged the kid, which earned her a gasp of surprise from said fox. Then, daddy is your mate?" Konatsu asked uncertainly, which earned her a surprised look from Kurumi. "Oh my, so young and already knows what mating is. Kids these days grow up so quickly." Kurumi said with a hint of amusement in her voice. A pink dusting appeared on Konatsu's maw, but she didn't said anything. "Guhaim, as much as I would like for the two of you to bond, we don't have time." Naruto's voice got Kurumi's attention. She nodded and looked down at the blushing fox in her arms. "Konatsu-chan, you must deliver a message to Konoha, it's urgent." At that, Konatsu looked up at Kurumi with eyes full of determination. "Of course, mommy." With that final words, Konatsu jumped off from Kurumi's arms and walked up to Naruto, who gave her a scroll which she caught in her mouth. "Konatsu-chan, deliver this to Hokage as fast as you can you do that?" Naruto asked, at which Konatsu nodded and sparks began appearing around her body. Few seconds later she was gone, leaving only a small cloud of dust behind. Naruto stood up and stretched slightly as his gaze turned to Kakashi. "She should get to Konoha in an hour at max, for now we should get going," he said simply and turned toward Kurumi, who was, to his great surprise, blushing. "Guhaim? Are you alright?" Naruto asked, breaking Kurumi out from her thoughts. She let out a short giggle and looked at Naruto. "I'm fine, let's go." With that said, both Naruto and Kurumi began to walk down the road. Soon everyone else snapped out from their stupor and followed them, still greatly confused as to what happened. August 3, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack on Hagakure. Inside, as he sat inside the meeting room where whole council usually assembled, he looked as the elders, civilian council and clan heads, along with Yamino Ruka, who is in charge of the academy, and Kushina, who took place for Naruto in his absence. In the corner of the room he also saw Minato leaning against the wall. "Can someone tell me what this meeting is for?" Jin asked with a growl, letting everyone know that one wrong word could end in bloodshed. "Actually, Hokage-sama, it's about Team 7. The one who said that was Mibuyuki Haruno, Sakura's mother. She has around 172 centimeters in height, fair skin with shoulder-length blonde hair with a single bang which falls down into her face. She also has green eyes and wears a white kipao dress with 3 red circular designs at the bottom of the front of her dress, as well as the back. Underneath the dress, she wears pink 3/4 length pants along with brown sandals." Jin immediately narrowed his eyes at her, but she didn't react. "What of it?" he asked. Some members of civilian councils are worried about the presence of the Kyuubi on that team, mainly because she and Uzumaki Naruto are believed to be a couple, which I must say, isn't their business. I often saw them together even before it was known who she is exactly, and I don't see how they could be worried about. Whatever she wanted to say next was lost as another member of civilian council stood up. "How could we don't worry about something like this? One Kyuubi was enough for this village. If this keeps up there will be more in few months." The man who said that was Murichi Olmida, who is a large, very fat man of around 210 centimeters in height with black hair. He wears an expensive black kimono with a large purple collar. He also wears an expensive jewelry. Ibuki and every ninja in the room frowned at this. It was no secret that the man hated Naruto and wanted nothing more than his suffering. It's not your concern, Lamita-san. What Kyuubi did wasn't her fault, that's why you all shouldn't worry about it. Jin said with a small sigh, hoping to end the further discussion. That may be, however we still aren't sure of her loyalty or the loyalty of Naruto Uzumaki. Few days ago he made that clear what he think of this village. The one who said that was no other than Dansum Shimura. Jin growled and sent a small glare his way, making everyone who stared at him flinch. He is loyal to me and that's enough, this village wronged him, so he has all the rights to despise it. He said in a dangerously cold voice, scaring everyone present, even Dansum himself. Jin stared at him for a few more seconds before he sighed and turned back to everyone else. Now that it's cleared up, does anyone have something to tell me? Jin suddenly stopped speaking and looked at Kushina's head, where a small white fox with two tails was siding. He blinked once then twice. After several more seconds of an uncomfortable silence, Jin spoke up. Hinatsu-chan. Is that you? He asked, to which the small fox nodded happily and jumped down from Kushina's head, shocking her. Hinatsu walked up to Jin and placed the scroll in front of him. Uncle Jin, Daddy told me to get here as fast as possible. Hinatsu said happily as Jin took the scroll and opened it, not caring about many confused or scared looks directed at the fox. His eyes quickly scanned the scroll and narrowed. He looked at the ceiling with all seriousness. What teams are currently able to depart? He asked sternly, seemingly to nobody. Few seconds later an Anbu dropped down beside him and knelt immediately. Only teammate is available at the moment, all the others are either already on a mission or recovering. The Anbu said, to which Jin frowned slightly. Sending them out so soon? I know Naruto will take care of himself, but the new team will, Jin thought until he suddenly grinned. Of course, young Hinata is on this team, so Naruto will destroy everything to keep her safe. Jin turned toward everyone and stood up. Excuse me, but I have something urgent to do. Hinatsu-chan, Kushina-san, and you Minato will go with me. With that said he quickly left the room with Hinatsu on his shoulder, while Kushina and Minato followed him. When the door closed, the first to break the silence was Tsume Inyazuka, clan head of the Inyazuka clan. Whatever it was, I'm sure Naruto was involved, that brat is a real trouble magnet. She said with a grin and relaxed in her seat. The civilian side of the council, not seeing the need to stay, walked out without a word. The elders soon followed. Whatever the case may be, my daughter is also involved in this, so is your son. Hiashi said calmly and closed his eyes. Tsume looked at him and scoffed. Are you still sore about your daughter loving Naruto? She asked, to which Hiashi opened his eyes. I'm not, now that I know who he is, I don't have any problem with that, more so, I already gave her my blessing. Thanks to him she became much stronger, even as far as catching up to my nephew who is an unquestionable prodigy. That answer surprised the clan heads greatly, mostly because they didn't know that Naruto trained Hinata. Really? I thought you would be furious, after all Hinata is your daughter. The one to said that was Shikaku Nara, Shikamaru's father. Hiashi sighed and shook his head, slowly standing up. That's why I want what is the best for her. If being with Naruto makes her happy and strong, then so be it. Excuse me for now, I have a clan to lead. With those words the head of the Haku clan walked out from the room. Soon after Tsume also stood up. He's right in one thing, we all have clans to take care of. She said and walked out quickly, followed by the rest of them. What happened, Hokage-sama? Ikki Kurenai asked as she and her team stood in front of their leader. Jin looked at her seriously and handed her the scroll he recently received. I want you and your team to help Team 7, which currently should be on their way to Wave Country. I don't have anyone else to ask. Kurenai scanned the content of the scroll with her eyes and frowned. Isn't there any more experienced teams available? She asked, to which Jin shook his head. There isn't anyone else I could ask, however this could prove useful to your team as one of the members of Team 7 is Naruto-kun himself. As the name was mentioned, Hinata blushed, which didn't went unnoticed by older people inside the office. Kurenai looked at the ground and thought, and after few seconds nodded. If there isn't anyone else then we accept, what do you think? The question she asked her group was met with immediate reply. Hinata quickly nodded with eyes full of determination, Shino just nodded, and Kiba grinned. Of course we will go. He said with confidence, to which Kurenai nodded with a smile. Alright, pack up for a few weeks and meet me at the gate in 2 hours, that should be plenty enough time. The members of Team 8 nodded and walked out from the office, followed by Kurenai, bowing to the Hokage and walking out. When they were gone, Jin sighed and slumped back in his chair. Hinatsu, who was hidden in the corner, jumped on top of Hokage's desk. Uncle Jin, will Daddy be alright? She asked, to which Jin smiled and began to pet her head. Don't worry Hinatsu-chan, like always he will be alright. For now however you should meet someone. Jin said and turned his gaze at Kushina and Minato, who still looked completely lost. Kanatsu also looked at them and tilted her head when her gaze landed on Kushina. She stared at her for several seconds before something clicked in her head. "Granny!" Kanatsu shouted and jumped at Kushina, who caught her by reflex. The tiny fox immediately snuggled into her bosom, much to Jin's amusement. Kushina looked at Jin with a confused look at which he sighed. "You see, Kushina-chan, after the destruction of Uzushi Ogakure, many foxes were young orphaned. Naruto took care of Kanatsu when he visited the island the foxes inhabited." At that, Kushina looked at the fox with wide eyes. "Then you are technically my granddaughter." As she said that, Kanatsu looked up at her and nodded happily. "That's right, Granny, Daddy told me so many amazing things about you." Kanatsu said excitedly and jumped off from Kushina's chest before she looked at Minato. However, this time she growled and took an attack stance similar to the one used by Inuzuka dogs. "Bad person." Kanatsu growled out as sparks began to travel on her fur. She was about to attack when Jin stood in front of her. "That's enough, Kanatsu-chan, your father wouldn't want you getting in troubles, would he?" At that, Kanatsu quickly calmed down and looked down in shame. "Sorry Uncle Jin, I will go now." With that said, Kanatsu disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Minato looked at Jin with a questioning look. "What was the just now?" he asked, to which Jin tilted his head. "Which one, the granddaughter part or the aggression part?" At that, Minato sent him a blank look. "The aggression part, of course." When Minato said that, Jin sighed. "She knows that you was the one to seal Kurumi inside Naruto, and you should know that the Kyuubi is like a goddess to the foxes." At this, a look of understanding crossed Minato's eyes, however just as quickly he blinked in confusion. "Wait, so that small fox was my granddaughter?" Both Kushina and Jin nodded. Almost immediately, Minato was crouching in the corner of the room, his finger tracing circles on the floor. My grandchild hates me," he muttered, at which Jin's sweat dropped. "You two quickly accepted it," he said and turned toward the window. He quickly pulled off his pipe, which was already filled, from one of the drawers and lit it up, taking a drag of the smoke. "I wasn't expecting Kanatsu here. Naruto must have sent her here especially to meet Kushina, at least I think he did." Jin thought and took one more drag from his pipe before he sat down in his chair. "Now then, back to work it seems." He thought and began to work on those damn papers. August 5, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack Nami no Kuni. When Team 7 arrived at the Wave Country, it was already morning. The road from Konoha to the port wasn't that long, except the attack and the fact that they had to wait for the person Tazuna hired to take them to Wave. "Great, it's the second day already and we just now arrived here," Naruto complained as he rubbed his sore shoulder. Kurumi grumbled something under her nose as the group walked down the road. "It can't be helped, Naruto, Tazuna's contact had to be careful, after all he set his life on the line to take us here." Naruto huffed at Kakashi's words but said nothing else. They walked like that for several minutes until Naruto sensed something. He tossed the kunai into the bushes where he sensed something, but the only thing he got was a white rabbit who jumped from the bushes and ran away. "Naruto baka, you scared the poor thing," Sakura shouted, but Naruto didn't hurt her. He quickly looked at Kakashi, who knew what was on his mind. "Keep your eyes open, that rabbit was used for Kawarimi, someone observed us." Just as Kakashi finished, they heard something flying toward them. "Get down," Kakashi shouted and ducked. Naruto tackled Tazuna, while Kurumi forced both Sakura and Sasuke to get down before doing so herself. What sword above them was a huge sword which Kakashi immediately recognized. When the sword passed them, they all stood up and turned where it landed. However, nearly everyone froze when they saw someone standing on the sword which embedded itself in the tree. The man is tall and noticeably muscular man of around 183 centimeters in height with pale skin, short spiky black hair, brown eyes, and small eyebrows. He wears a mask made from bandages, baggy pants with a striped pattern typical of Kurigakure, and mimetic wrist warmers extending up to his elbows, with matching leg warmers. He's shirtless, with the only thing covering his chest being the belt to which his sword should be attached. He also wears his forehead protector sideways on his head. Well, if it isn't Kakashi Hatake, fancy meeting you here, however I would advise giving me the bridge builder, it would be easier for both of us." Kakashi immediately narrowed his eyes at the man's words. "Zabuza Mamachi, I didn't expect you here, however Tazuna-san is our client, so we can't let you kill him." At this, Zabuza snorted and wanted to say something, but noticed Kakashi reaching toward his hit I-8. "Huh, reaching for your Sharingan so quickly, you are getting old." Kakashi didn't react at Zabuza's taunt, he just pulled up his hit I-8, revealing a vertical scar over his left eye. He opened his scared eye, revealing an eye with red iris and 3 black tomo spinning slowly around the pupil. "I'm not getting old, it means that I will go all out against you now." At that last word, Kakashi dashed at Zabuza, kunai already in both of his hands. Slightly taken off guard at this, Zabuza quickly jumped off his sword and pulled it with a strong tug, swinging it at the incoming Kakashi and forcing some distance between them. "Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, protect the builder." Kakashi ordered. The three of them along with Kurumi immediately formed a square formation around Tazuna, Sakura, and Sasuke, had kunai in hand with Kurumi standing with all her tails out. Naruto however, pulled out 10 tags and quickly placed them around the group before performing a series of hand seals. By no Shmiki. 10-tailed barrier, he said and placed his hands on the tag in front of him. A bright blue ring appeared on the ground around his hands. From that ring lines of chakra began to quickly spread left and right to connect with the tags. Each tag the line touched began to glow, and when all of the lines created a circle around the group, a nearly transparent dome phased into existence. Naruto. What's wrong, don't you want to fight? Kurumi asked as she gazed at the barrier. It was so unlike Naruto to do things like this. Kakashi is one thing, I beat him because he was too lazy in his training, besides, if I used my Raiden no Yoroi everyone would get shocked, it's too damp here. There is also the other reason, Zabuza is better than me in swordsmanship, and he was an Anbu, people like him are deadly. Naruto said seriously as he gazed at the fight between their sensei and Zabuza. They already made some distance from the group when a heavy mist filled the area. Naruto instantly recognized this as the jutsu. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he gazed around the thick mist. His Sharingan was basically useless because the mist was filled with chakra. That blonde student of yours is something else, barriers aren't so easy to create for a single person. Zabuza's voice sounded all around Kakashi, making it impossible to detect him. Kakashi tensed and quickly turned around, blocking the large blade that was about to cut off his head. Sparks went off between the blades of kunai and the sword. Kakashi pushed Zabuza's sword away and dashed in that direction, but Zabuza was already gone. I must say Kakashi, I'm impressed, but that fox woman intrigued me, it's not every day that you see a demon. Zabuza said from behind Kakashi, who quickly spun around and stabbed Zabuza with his kunai. His body however quickly turned into the water to which Kakashi's eyes widened in shock. It's over. Zabuza shouted from behind Kakashi and slashed his massive sword across Kakashi's back, which caused a feral smirk to form under his mask. However the smirk turned into surprised look when instead of blood water come out from Kakashi's back. Shit, he copied my Mizu-Bunshin water clone. Zabuza thought in slight panic. It's over. Kakashi said from behind him. However another Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi and caught him. The real Zabuza turned around and delivered a powerful kick to Kakashi's face, sending him flying into the nearby lake. Kakashi crashed into the water but emerged back after few seconds. Zabuza however was already waiting for him. Suram no Jutsu water prison technique. Zabuza said, and a spherical dome surrounded Kakashi, trapping him inside. I must say it's satisfying to have the famous Kakashi trapped like this. Zabuza said arrogantly as his mist dispersed. Around him several water clones emerged from the water and rushed where Naruto and the group was. Now I will take care of your students and the bridge builder, no hard feelings. Zabuza said and watched as Kakashi's eyes widened in shock. Inside the barrier Naruto was quickly getting irritated as Zabuza's clone spammed water techniques at the barrier. Naruto-kun, that man can do this all day, and you would eventually have to drop the barrier. Kurumi said with worry clear in her voice. She still wasn't at full strength yet so an all battle was out of question for her. Naruto sighed and looked at her. He wanted to say something, but H caught sight of the trapped Kakashi in the corner of his eye. Kurumi, take my place. Naruto said seriously. Kurumi without question placed her hands on the tag Naruto used before and began to fill it with her chakra, the dome almost immediately gaining a red hue. Now keep the barrier up, I will take care of Zabuza. Naruto said and jumped out from the dome. Almost immediately some of Zabuza's clones attacked him, but Naruto pulled out his sword and quickly took care of them. He dashed toward the real Zabuza that is Kakashi trapped, all the way taking care of any clone that stood in his way. Zabuza saw that and smirked. Another clone of Zabuza emerged beside him and placed its hand on the sphere, while the real Zabuza faced Naruto. That should be interesting. Zabuza muttered to himself and watched as Naruto began to run off top of the lake at him. Zabuza swung his sword at the blonde, but he ducked under it and slashed horizontally at Zabuza, who took a step back and once more slashed at Naruto, who blocked the blade before kicking at Zabuza's leg, making him grunt slightly at the pain. Zabuza pushed Naruto back and rushed at him. Naruto slashed at the incoming Zabuza who blocked the blade with the flat side of his sword and delivered a punch to Naruto's face, sending him flying and crashing into the water. Zabuza was above him in an instant and tried to spear him through with his sword, but Naruto turned into the cloud of smoke, much to Zabuza's disbelief. Raikmhm thunder, roar seer. Zabuza quickly turned around and much to his shock saw Naruto with an orb of yellow lightning in his palm, pointed right at Zabuza's chest. Thinking quickly Zabuza shielded his chest with his sword, just as a huge bolt of lightning shot out from Naruto's palm and slammed into Zabuza's sword, creating an explosion and sending both shinobi far away from each other. Zabuza's clones turned into water and Kakashi was free once more. He quickly looked into the direction Naruto was sent flying and rushed to help him. When he get there he saw Naruto slowly getting up from a deep trench in the ground, using his sword as a support. Damn, definitely too close. Naruto muttered as he fully stood up. Kakashi walked up to him with his usual eye smile. "Good job, Naruto," he said, but Naruto shook his head. "It's not over yet," Naruto said, which surprised Kakashi. However, Naruto was right as few seconds later Zabuza walked out from the cloud of dust created by the explosion. His blade is broken in half and several small shards of steel are embedded in his chest. "Not bad, brat, it was some time since the last time I had so much fun, however it will all end." He didn't get to finish as two senbon pierced the back of his neck. Zabuza stood there for few seconds with a shocked look on his face when he suddenly began to fall down face first into the ground. Few seconds later a hunter nin beside Zabuza and checked his pulse. The hunter nin wears a standard Kurigakure pinstriped outfit which stopped at his knees. Over this he wore a green haori with white trimmings and around his waist, a brown sash with a fringe trail wrapped around his waist twice. He also wore light brown platoon sandals with straps in the same color as his kimono and nail polish on his fingernails and toenails in matching blue-green color. The hunter's long black hair were gathered in a white bun holder, while two locks of his hair fell loose framing his face, bound with metal hair cuffs at the ends. He also wore a hunter nin mask on his face, which was white with thin curved eye holes and a red wavy design in place of the mouth, as well as the Kurigakure symbol etched in the top. "He's certainly dead, thank you Konoha Shinobi for your help, I was tracing this man for many months now," the hunter nin said in a feminine voice and picked Zabuza's body up before bowing and quickly disappearing. Both Kakashi and Naruto frowned at this. "It's not the end, is it?" Naruto asked, to which Kakashi nodded. Naruto sighed and began to walk toward the rest of the group when his body suddenly went stiff and he collapsed onto the ground. "Naruto!" Kakashi shouted and kneeled beside Naruto, who grunted in discomfort. "Damn, getting zapped by my own technique. Kurumi will scold me for sure." Naruto muttered and chuckled. Kakashi also chuckled and picked him up, lifting him over his shoulder. "She will probably do that, for now let's go to the rest," Kakashi said and began to walk toward the rest of the group. When he arrived there, and Kurumi immediately dropped the barrier, rushing toward Naruto, who by now stood beside Kakashi. Naruto smiled at her as she neared him, but then he got a punch right in the face, courtesy of an angry Kurumi whose tails are swaying wildly behind her. "Idiot, firing Raikkonen when you are wet was a stupid idea," Kurumi shouted with an furious look on her face. Kakashi watched as Naruto tried to apologize, but it resulted in another punch. He shook his head and walked away from couple. When he was gone, Kurumi calmed down and looked at Naruto with raised eyebrow. "So why were you holding back?" she asked, to which Naruto sighed in frustration. "Letting Kakashi know about my full power is a bad idea, I still don't trust him fully," he said seriously, to which Kurumi nodded with a smile. "That's fine, nice job by the way," she said, to which Naruto scowled. "Zabuza is not dead, Kakashi, no, but don't tell others." At this Kurumi looked surprised, but it quickly turned back into her smile. "Alright, now let's go," she said just as Kakashi began to call them. Without much more to do, both of them began to walk toward the group that slowly began to walk toward Tazuna's house. Naruto sighed as he walked out from Tazuna's house and began to walk into the nearby forest. It wasn't even few hours since they got here, and yet he already had enough. Tazuna and his daughter Tsunami were alright, but Tsunami's son, Inari, well, it's better to not go into that. "Naru-kun?" Kurumi's voice sounded from behind his back, to which he turned toward her with a tiny smile on his face. "Sorry, I just had problems with my temper lately," Naruto said and began to scratch the back of his head. Kurumi chuckled and walked up to him. "It's okay, however it seems like there is more to it than just this, will you tell me?" Kurumi asked. Naruto sighed and crossed his arms on his chest while making a slightly annoyed face. "To tell the truth, it's not like I didn't want to fight Zabuza, it's just ever since I released you from the seal my powers are sometimes unresponsive, I just don't know what is happening, and it's irritating." When Naruto said that, Kurumi's eyes went wide open from shock and she immediately pulled up Naruto's shirt. She placed her palm on his stomach and pumped some chakra, showing the seal that once was her prison. However, her expression turned into a look of horror when she noticed the state of the seal. Several pieces were missing and the whole seal looked like a shattered glass. "It's no good, the seal is messing up with his powers, that much is obvious. I can't do anything from the outside," Kurumi thought and took her hand from Naruto's stomach. "I think I've got a solution, however it would take some time, few days to be precise." At this, Naruto's eyes went wide from shock. "Few days? We don't have so much time." Naruto raised his voice. Even now he could feel his powers dropping down, so he didn't have such luxury as time. Kurumi saw that and shook her head with a sigh. "There is no other option, the seal on your stomach is messing up your whole body, the only way to help you is destroying the seal from the inside." When she said that, Naruto looked at her in surprise. The seal? I thought it would be gone once you are free. At this, Kurumi smiled and shook her head in amusement. Not exactly, the seal was still holding my chakra. You should know that the chakra of demons is unique because it clings to the user, that's why it's so hard to extract. My theory is simple, without me to hold it, the chakra began to trash around and damage the seal. Now you have to go inside your head and claim that chakra, then you would finish its work. However, Kakashi would be helpful with that. Naruto listened to her in great interest. He nodded as the plan sounded rather easy, yet the part with Kakashi surprised him slightly. Kakashi? Why we should need him? Naruto asked. Kurumi just winked and turned around. That's a secret, she said and began to walk back toward Tazuna's house when she disappeared behind the trees. Naruto's side. What a woman, will I ever understand her? Naruto complained loudly, however he couldn't help a smile that appeared on his lips. He shook his head in amusement and began to walk back to Tazuna's house. I'm back, Naruto announced as he entered the house. Inside the living room, Team 7, along with Kurumi and Tazuna, are sitting. Ah, I was just about to go get you, Naruto, please sit down. Naruto sat on the couch beside Sasuke, while Sakura also sat beside Sasuke. Kakashi sighed and ruffled his hair in annoyance. To tell the truth, Zabuza is not dead. At that, Sakura's and Sasuke's eyes opened wide from shock, while Tazuna visibly paled. Naruto sighed as he leaned forward. The shinobi that supposedly killed Zabuza was actually working with him, Naruto said with closed eyes. Kakashi nodded at this. Exactly, that's why we now have to worry about another opponent. Maybe there are more ninja getting hired. It should take Zabuza around a week to recover, so we will use this time to prepare. Hopefully the backup will arrive by the time, otherwise we don't have much chance. Kakashi said seriously. Kurumi however scoffed at him. Don't forget you have me here, I can easily take down anyone you. Kurumi began to speak proudly, but Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder. Harem, I know you are eager for a fight, but you still haven't returned to full strength. Even with the seal it will take few months to return your chakra to an acceptable level. Naruto's words brought a gentle smile to Kurumi's face, along with a bright pink blush. Naru-kun, she whispered and looked at Naruto with eyes full of love. That's why I love you, even with that darkness inside you, you won't let me be hurt. Kurumi thought lovingly and nodded slightly. You are right, I'm sorry, Kurumi said, to which Naruto smiled and shook his head. Don't be, it's not your fault after all, Naruto said and placed both of his hands on her cheeks, lightly forcing her to look into his eyes. Remember, Harem, it doesn't matter if you are strong or not, I love you no matter what. At this, Kurumi grinned. You certainly know how to get a woman in the mood, she said and hugged him, bringing her lips closer to his own. That moment however was broken by a scoff from Sasuke, who crossed his arms on his chest and huffed loudly. Disgusting. Simple comment caused Kurumi to give Sasuke a death glare. You want to die, Uchiha? I can only tolerate your presence so far, but if you push your luck even Kakashi won't help you, Kurumi said with anger clear in her eyes. Sasuke went stiff in fear, but the whole situation was handled by Naruto. Now, let's all calm down so we can live another day, Naruto said with a smile, but it quickly ended as he sent a bone-chilling glare at Sasuke. And you, princess, better save your breeding to yourself, am I clear? Sasuke almost instantly nodded at the cold voice Naruto used. Kakashi only sighed and face-palmed. Can we just get back to what we discussed earlier, please? Naruto turned toward Kakashi and nodded slightly, to which Kakashi sighed in relief. As I was saying, we have to prepare for multiple enemies, that's why rest well tonight, as tomorrow we will start very early. With that said, the members of Team 7 nodded and dispersed, each going to do what they wanted. August 6, 15 years after Kikubi's attack Nami no Kuni. Now, today we will learn something new, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Sasuke smirked while Sakura fidgeted slightly. However, Naruto and Kurumi stood some distance away from the rest of their team, discussing something. Kakashi saw that but just shook his head. Whatever, he probably already knows about this exercise, Kakashi thought and turned toward his two younger students. Now today we will learn tree climbing, he said cheerfully, to which both Sakura and Sasuke deadpanned. But why? I don't see much sense in this, Sakura asked, to which Kakashi gave them another one of his patented eye smiles. And here is where it gets interesting, we will learn climbing trees without using hands, Kakashi said and walked up to the tree. He placed one of his legs on the bark and seconds later he was already walking up the tree. It was nothing. See, no hands, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Sakura along with Sasuke stared at Kakashi in disbelief, that is, until Naruto walked beside them and glared at Kakashi. Are you funking nuts? It won't help them in trouble, Naruto shouted up at him, which caused the silver-haired man to sigh. We have to start with something, not everyone are as talented as you, Naruto. When he said that, Naruto sighed and turned around. Whatever, Naruto muttered and walked away from them, going back to where Kurumi stand. Kakashi sighed and shook his head at that. August 7, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack Nami no Kuni. Night was slowly approaching in the Wave Country. Right now Naruto and Kurumi were tasked with a very important mission, escorting their backup to Tezuna's house. You know, this past few days we couldn't do anything beside cuddling. Kurumi said with a whine, to which Naruto nodded. I know it sucks, but it can't be helped. However, once this mission is over I will take you on a date. Naruto's words caused Kurumi to smile brightly at her man. She looped her right arm through his left one as they walked down the road. I would like that, come on, they shouldn't be too far now. Kurumi said and pulled Naruto with her as she speed up her walk. Few minutes later they arrived at an empty clearing which caused Naruto to sigh. Okay guys, you can come out now. He said aloud. For few seconds nothing happened before they heard rustling in a tree beside them. To their surprise, teammate jumped out from the tree and walked up to Naruto. Yuhi-san. Naruto said with a slight bow as Kurenai walked up to him. Hello Uzumaki-san, good you could make it. At that Naruto sighed and shook his head. Please Yuhi-san, just call me Naruto, I don't like formalities. Kurenai smiled at Naruto's words and nodded. Alright, maybe we should get going now. Naruto smiled and nodded, his eyes however quickly turned to a blushing Hinata. Good to see you Hinata, how are you feeling? Naruto asked kindly, at which Hinata looked away and began to play with her hands. Good, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and was about to walk away when something caught his attention. He looked at Hinata's right hand wrapped in bandages. Did someone attack you? Naruto asked seriously, surprising everyone except Kurumi, who just smiled at his protectiveness. Just some thugs, they didn't stand much chance, but one of them scored a scratch on Hinata's hand. At Kurenai's words Naruto sighed in relief. And Kami, now, let's go. Naruto said and smiled at Hinata. Come on Hinata, you are probably tired. He said and reached his right hand to Hinata, who could only blush heavily and take his hand. Thank you Naruto-kun. Hinata said quietly. Naruto nodded and began to walk back to Tezuna's house with Hinata and Kurumi by his side. Some point along the way Naruto also took Kurumi's hand with his left one. Kurenai upon seeing his smiled slightly, seeing how happy Hinata is right now. To think someone with his past can still be this loving. Hinata is one lucky girl, even if she have to share him. Kurenai thought and looked at her other students. She noticed that Shino is as quiet as ever, but Kiba was glaring at the back of Naruto's head. Strange, I never saw Kiba like that. Kurenai thought, but she quickly shook her head. No matter, I have a feeling that it will not end badly. With that she looked ahead, noting to ask Kiba about his behavior later. August 8, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack Nami no Kuni. As you can see, we need Kakashi to restore Naruto's powers, do you understand? Kurumi asked, to which Kakashi and Kurenai nodded along with Naruto. It was late evening, and the four of them just finished discussing about Naruto's powers. I understand, I will help however I can, but it must be at least 2 days from now, I still have Sakura and Sasuke to take care of. Kakashi said with his trademark eye smile, to which Kurumi growled slightly but nodded nonetheless. I get it, those pests won't take care of themselves. Kurumi muttered quietly and stood up. Naruto looked at her and smiled lovingly. Kuheim, do you have a moment? Naruto asked, to which Kurumi smiled and nodded. Of course, what do you need? Instead of answering her Naruto stood up and gently took her hand before walking toward the door. Kurumi just blinked in confusion but followed him outside. When they left the house Naruto began to walk inside the forest, putting even further distance between them and the house. Naru-kun, where are we going? Kurumi asked. Naruto just looked at her for a moment and grinned. Well, you complained about not being able to do anything beside cuddling, so I thought about making it up to you. When he said that Kurumi blushed slightly, already loving that idea. Hey alright, just be sure to sate my desires, you know how I can get. A short laugh was her answer. After several minutes of walking they finally stopped in a small forest clearing. Naruto turned toward her and grabbed her by her waist, pulling her closer toward his body. Tonight you have me at your disposal. He said and gently grabbed the back of her head with his right hand. Before she could react Naruto pulled her into a passionate kiss which she melted into almost instantly. August 9, 15 years after Kyuubi's attack Nami no Kuni. Naruto opened his eyes as the sunlight hit his eyelids. He grunted as he tried to sat up, but a weight on his chest prevented him from doing so. Funk, she really is hard to please. I must get back my power or else she would literally funk the life out of me. Naruto thought and looked on top of his chest and smiled upon seeing the mop of crimson hair blocking his view. Now that's the side I want to wake up for. He thought and created a shadow clone with whom he substituted, all of this done silently as to not wake up Kurumi. Naruto looked up and stretched his limbs, enjoying the popping sound of his joints. He took a deep breath of the fresh air and sighed in content. Well then, what to do? Naruto asked himself around, however, before he could do anything a rustling coming from the bushes across the clearing alerted him to someone's presence. He looked in that direction and his eyebrow raised in amusement. From behind the bushes, a young girl of around 155 centimeters in height walked out. She has long black hair, pale skin, large, dark brown eyes and slender frame. She wore a pink, sleeveless kimono with pale red edges and decorated with small plum-colored swirls that went to her ankles. Around her waist was a simple white obi tied in a bow, and she wore a pair of light brown sandals with dark straps. She also wore a dark-colored choker around her neck. Naruto noticed she has a basket filled with various herbs in her hand. I wasn't expecting to meet her so soon. Naruto thought and began to walk toward the girl. When she noticed him she flinched visibly. How? I didn't felt his presence before. The girl thought as Naruto stood a small distance in front of her, his arms crossed over his chest and a gentle smile on his face. So, I see that Zabuza is still recovering. Naruto said, to which she tensed even more and retrieved the senbon she hid inside her sleeve. Naruto noticed that and shook his head. Stop that, I'm not here to fight with you, my name is Naruto by the way. At that Haku looked into his eyes. After several moments of silence she sighed slightly. Haku, how did you know? A soft chuckle was her answer. She frowned and opened her mouth to say something, but Naruto's next word stopped her. You have his scent on you, not enough to suggest an intimate relationship, but enough to know that you spend a lot of time with that person. I also know that you are a girl, so don't try to lie. Haku's eyes went wide open at this. I must say it is a very good thing that I met you here. We can talk like civilized people without Zabuza trying to gut me out. At that comment Haku giggled slightly. He is still angry about his defeat, so, what do you want to talk about? Naruto smiled and looked up at the clouds above. To tell the truth, I want to give you a second chance at life. After Naruto said that a silence fell on both of them, Haku could only stare at the man before her in shock. What? The question was said so quietly that Naruto almost missed it. You heard me, I didn't heard or read about you, so that means you are not in a bingo book. Zabuza on the other hand is very famous, many people will target you just to get to him. At that Haku took a defensive stance which caused Naruto to sigh. Look, I don't really want to fight, and I don't care for some of my comrades, the only thing I want is give you and Zabuza protection. As a head of the Uzumaki clan I can protect both of you. That only earned him a glare. It's hard to believe. Haku said, which once again caused Naruto to sigh and facepalm. Irritation began to surface in him. Girl, I am a head of the Uzumaki clan, pledging your loyalty to my clan will give you protection, and we wouldn't have to fight, trust me, you and Zabuza won't stand a chance against me. Naruto said in irritation and began to scratch the back of his head. Anyway, just tell this to Zabuza, I really want to avoid fighting. With that said Naruto turned and began to walk toward the tree where Kurumi was still sleeping under. He picked her up in a bridal style and turned last time toward Haku. A word of advice, the herbs you search for are in a small field that way. Naruto said, tilting his head behind him. Haku just stared at him for few seconds before he began to walk away. After few minutes Naruto suddenly stopped with wide eyes. I forgot to ask if they work with someone else. Naruto thought and looked behind him, however, he decided to just walk back. Whatever, I just hope that Kurumi's plan will work out. He thought and sighed. It better will. August 11, 15 years after Kikbi's attack Nami no Kuni. Naruto grunted as he picked himself up and spat out some dust. He looked up toward the top of the deep shaft he was dropped into and glared at the grinning Kurumi who stood there with hands on her waist. His attire looked normal, but he didn't have his sword on himself and his hands are bound behind his back. I swear, it's Urahara once again. Naruto thought and sighed. After several seconds of glaring, Kurumi took that as a sign to say something. Narukoi, now listen carefully. You must go into your inner world and find my energy, it shouldn't be too hard, when you find it you will know what to do. She said cheerfully, but Naruto sensed a hint of worry in her voice. He also saw Kakashi walking up to the edge and looking down on him. Say, Kurumi-san, for what he needs to be down there. Naruto heard Kakashi say. He perked up because he also wanted to know the reason why. Simple, if Naruto goes crazy we can drop every destructive jutsu without him dodging, but I'm sure he won't die I think. Naruto could only stare blankly at Kurumi because of her last comment. Great. He thought and closed his eyes, he steadied his breathing and waited. Several seconds later he felt a slight pull on his mind, so he just relaxed. Few seconds later he opened his eyes and sighed in relief. Instead of the earthy walls of the shaft Naruto found himself in the middle of a burned out field and his hands are once more free. He noticed that something similar to snow was falling around him, but Naruto knew better, the smell of burning wood was clear. Ash, the last time I was here there was nothing like this. Naruto thought and looked around. He instantly noticed that what was once a beautiful forest was now a large gathering of burned trees. He looked in front of himself and set his gaze at the mountain in the distance. No wonder I'm so weak, time to tame the beast. He said and began to walk in the direction of the mountain, his eyes full of determination. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.